It's my feel-good breakfast show.
Oh, it's your feel-good breakfast show. I feel like we need to update those photos because there's JP with the beard, and where the beard's gone.
It's CG.
Going.
Clearly, if I do this, no. Oh, okay, no, it's real. Don't worry.
We're talking movies releasing in cinema. Now, I have to be honest. I saw Jaws and I saw E.T. I'm like, did people make remakes of this? So I went and researched and I'm like, no, these are the originals relaunching in cinema.
It really got it sucked into you. You had to do your homework.
I had to do my homework.
No, and rightly so, because this is such a rare opportunity, guys. I have to say it again. What we just said, Jaws and E.T. are in cinema this weekend on IMAX, one of the biggest screens available. And to take in two of Steven Spielberg's masterpieces. Reason being, by the way, is that E.T. this year turns 40 years old.
And Jaws 47.
Yes, that's right. You did
Both
do your
movies
homework.
are older than us.
Sure. Yeah, me, okay.
Are you 40? Exactly, it's older than you.
Little cliffhanger. No, you're right. It is definitely. But Jaws is the first one I want to talk to you about. Do I need to introduce Jaws? I remember when I was a kid, my uncle had a poster of Jaws doing exactly this. Behind the toilet door, and my aunt couldn't use the toilet for a very long time until he took the poster down. This was a pretty common thing. Like, if you grew up in the 90s, if you grew up in the 80s, I don't know why people were traumatizing each other. And it did. This movie traumatized a lot of people. Of course, it made, like, marine biologists, like, pretty upset and whatever, but what a masterpiece of tension, horror, and bromance for the larger part of the three guys together. Did you see Jaws?
I did see Jaws, and I mean...
We're saying Jaws a lot. Say it as much as you like.
It's also, like, quite a few, like, gruesome aspects, but I mean, it was for a movie that was made and produced 47 years ago.
And thus,
and we still want to see it to this day.
We refer to it as a summer blockbuster. It was the first.
It was the first.
Before you get like Avengers Endgame and all this other business, like the movie that made blockbuster a word that we use regularly was Jaws. And you talk about it being prescient to this day, aside from the, tell you what, before I get into like the politics and the nitpicking of that, the editor Werner Fields, who won the Oscar for editing Jaws, she argued with Steven Spielberg vehemently because he was like, oh yes, here's the scene. An ad-libbed line, by the way, you're going to need a bigger boat.
That's like the most iconic line of the movie.
Improvised, as iconic as John Williams' score. It's weird to think that music did not exist before Jaws. Oh, sorry, a little bit about Werner Fields, the editor. So Steven Spielberg and her arguing in the suite. No, there's something wrong. He's like, there's something just slightly off. The thing feels too robotic. Like, it really does feel like there's an animatronic thing going on. And this editor has the sense, the mind to go, I'm going to shave off 4 frames from every scene with Jaws in it. Now, 4 frames, when you're watching us here on Expresso right now, this is 25 frames every second in South Africa. And so 4 out of those 25 she shaved off, and suddenly the realism of the shark is pumped up entirely because she had just the genius to shave off a sliver from each scene of the thing, and suddenly the realism is through the roof. Yes, and for that reason gave a lot of people phobias. Go get yourself a phobia this weekend in South Africa.
So I have to check. It's out in IMAX just for this weekend or from this weekend?
Last time I went to see Cheese, they had Apocalypse Now as well, and we missed that. These were marketed, guys, I believe, spread the word. And it was only on for a week, so the sliver of the window is very thin.
It's quite a limited one. So Jaws being the first one out, relaunched in cinema, IMAX, but then there's also E.T.
Did E.T. make you cry?
Oh, E.T. was every child, like, oh, you were heartbroken because E.T. had to go home.
And people didn't know that Drew Barrymore was in this too. Little Drew Barrymore, who through the entire shooting of this it was kept a secret from her by Steven Spielberg that the thing was animatronic, because she's a babaki, she doesn't know the difference necessarily. But the set was so well managed that there barely was any wires to be seen, there barely were any puppeteers to be seen. Steven Spielberg, by the way, and I'm just telling you trivia, because you know the story of E.T. I don't need to retell you E.T.
No, you don't.
So I'll tell you little tidbits, little sweeties that I could throw out for you.
So she thought E.T. was real while they were filming this.
One of the ways he achieves this is he tells the animatronic team, the puppeteers, which is about 3 people at any one time doing this thing, oh man, what a beautiful movie, that they have to, there she is, they have to rehearse all of his movements before shooting begins. So there's no on set them testing the robot, no one's seen, and then everyone had to treat the set with the kind of reverence that he is a star.
The real E.T.
He's the person who you're serving, like, so Spielberg, interestingly, he's part of like this group of 3 compadres, which is George Lucas, Steven Spielberg, and James Cameron. James Cameron obviously goes on to do Aliens, that's Alien 2. George Lucas obviously goes on to do Star Wars. And Spielberg goes, you know what? 2001 A Space Odyssey inspired all of us, but I'm going to make an alien that's kind-hearted. Because obviously every other description since then, or after 2001
They're
A
always
Space Odyssey,
evil.
is there's a great deal of fear going into it. Also, I have to tell you about Henry Thomas, the little actor Elliot, who actually didn't care much for the fame. I think only did 2 movies after this. Now, in his audition, which I think you can find on YouTube pretty easily, I encourage you to go see it too, Zoe. Steven Spielberg breaks down into tears because he just describes this little 11-year-old boy. He says, you're trying to convince a government man to not take your alien friend away and go. And this 11-year-old bawls his eyes out in a weird, like, otherworldly way. This kid just switches on the waterworks, and Spielberg starts crying with him, and he says, you've got the job.
Oh.
So, absolute masterpiece in a time that we're flooded with CGI, computer graphics, like my fake beard situation going on here.
Oh.
The geniuses at Industrial Light and Magic.
Exciting
like
thing.
to see puppeteering, you know, little latex monsters come to life again like this, yeah. Please do go see it this weekend.
Well, there you have it. Jaws is back in cinemas for a limited time at IMAX as well as E.T. Oh, listen, these are childhood favorites that you want to go watch. If your kids are old enough, take them to go and experience these classics. These are movies that are 40 and 47-year-olds respectively. But JP Sebastian's not going anywhere because we have more movies to talk.